Today on the Humanity Sales Podcast, we're venturing back into our State of ServiceNow Virtual Summit to bring you a conversation that I got to have with Natalie Tollefson, who's not only an amazing human being, but a baller technology consultant as well. You're going to hear how Natalie aligns her solutions with actual user needs and how that builds real trust with the humans who make enterprise IT work. Buckle up. It's go time. Welcome to the Humanity Sales Podcast, where we talk about the marketing revolution that's happening in tech consulting and how the best businesses are elevating their brand, amplifying their message, and selling more by being more human. We're your hosts, Brandon Triola.
And I'm Nate Nitty. Let's get into
it. This is Natalie Tollefson. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, Tollefson, you got it.
That's awesome. And I was going to introduce you in like the formal way, but I'm going to actually introduce you like in a different way, like in a little bit of a story. So for those of you that don't know Natalie, Nate and I met her for the first time 2 knowledges ago at ServiceNow, flagship event Knowledge. And I remember you're sitting at a booth and I remember users and lots of conference attendees walking by. And I remember watching you engage with these people and talk to them. And I just remember going, man, she is super helpful. Look at how she's like listening to them. Look at how she's answering their questions. And just going to myself in that moment, these are the kinds of people that I feel like ServiceNow users really love to get around. Not people that are just like obsessed with just talking about their solution or what their offering is. But I just remember you listening. And so when we were putting together this report, one of the things that kept coming to the surface that everyone's hearing about and going to hear more about is how these ServiceNow users want more guidance. And so I remember we were curating our list of who we wanted to have on the summit. And I remember going, we got to get Natalie. She's like the ultimate guide. People trust her. She's good at listening. So I'm really thankful for you being here. Tell everybody who you are, who you work for, and what your role is.
I think you just wanted me because I bought you that drink one time. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. Yeah.
We did have a fun dinner with the group that night. That's right. That was fun.
We did. Yeah. It was cool. Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks for having me here. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet everyone. My name's Natalie Tollefson. I work for Optimum Healthcare IT. I'm the director of service delivery, specializing in employee workflows.
Amazing. And obviously that, Optimum Healthcare IT, that's pretty cool. I mean, it sounds like that's super specific. It sounds like to me, not your average ServiceNow partner, right?
Yeah. Optimum Healthcare IT is it's pretty special. It's a place that I've really called home, and we're actually an elite ServiceNow partner. We're the only elite partner within the ecosystem that focuses exclusively within healthcare provider organizations, which is pretty awesome. And I know you know this, Brandon, but my roots are in healthcare. I grew up in human resources, working with physicians and clinical providers. That's my background. Those are my roots, and just done a variety of different roles within that space, anywhere from employee relations to drug and alcohol abuse programs for clinical providers to leading HR technology and PMO with some pretty sizable digital transformation initiatives.
Crazy.
And I know it's just been quite a journey, and it's really what led me into the consulting space, honestly, because I've always had a passion for making an impact, always had a passion for process improvement and technology. And so that led me into consulting with ServiceNow.
I feel like healthcare too. Wow, what a time. I mean, obviously you could say what you want politically about the state of our healthcare, but to know there are people behind the scenes making these organizations, making it work is really great to know.
Totally. And, it's insane because I was doing a lot of research over the past several months and just reading some of those analyst reports like McKinsey and different ones out there that are saying, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of clinical providers, like a shortage of that amount within the healthcare system. I mean, burnout is a real issue. Labor inflation costs, real issue. technology and hyperautomation is how
Crazy.
this country's healthcare system is going to survive. So
Yeah.
it feels
If there's ever a
pretty
time for
powerful.
optimizing healthcare, right? It's now.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
cool. Well, before we get into speaking of analyst reports, we're going to talk about ROI because that was one of the themes that we heard in this report coming to the surface. We've got users almost begging, saying, hey, help me prove ROI upwards, downwards, sideways. Before we get into that, tell us about you, the human. You know what, for us, we're all about humanity, right? None of this makes sense. None of this matters if we're not actually helping each other, getting to know each other. Who are you when you're not working? Tell us a little bit about Natalie, the person.
It's really not that exciting, but I'll tell you anyways. I'm actually a mom of 4. So I have 3 boys and 1 girl, ranging from 4 years old to 15 years old. And
you said that's not exciting?
I mean, I guess it depending on, what gets you excited, but
yeah, that's awesome.
I'm a homebody for sure. 4 different schools, so that's pretty it's pretty insane. But yeah, I just spend a lot of family time. I love hanging out with the kids, playing games, watching them do their sports. You know how it is. You have kids.
It's awesome. So guys, everybody listening in, you not only have a world-class technology consultant here, you have a world-class mom, a wife, right? You're married.
Yeah.
So this is awesome. I love hearing that. I'm sure you probably got, when you have kids, you probably have so many stories. We won't talk about all that today, but you guys will have a chance to connect with Natalie and her LinkedIn information and stuff later. But we're going to get into this session. Really excited about this. We're going to talk about ROI. Natalie, I've got a couple questions for you. Obviously, you read through the report, right? It's a pretty big topic right now. I would love if you could give us a little context around why you're passionate about this topic of ROI. Why is it so relevant in ServiceNow at this moment?
Yeah. No, I was really excited to see this topic come up on the report, especially as that number one area that users need. First of all, what I find really fascinating, Brandon, is that when you talk about ROI, it really has very little to do with the actual technology. When you think about it, proving ROI is really more about people. It's about influence. It's gaining that buy-in. It's moving hearts and minds. And you can have all the numbers, to tell that, make that compelling business case. But if you're not engaging those stakeholders, you're not empowering people to really believe that story, then your business case isn't going to go anywhere. So it's really a lot about people and storytelling.
That's awesome. I love that. Obviously, I'm a marketing guy. For us, we're obsessed with this whole idea of storytelling. And it's cool because you don't think of that typically as a skill, you think technology consulting, especially ROI, you think math, but really it's about, you said moving hearts and minds. I think that's awesome. And I love how you talk about empowering stakeholders. For everyone tuning in out there, I would love for you to shed some light on what would qualify as a stakeholder inside of the process of getting ServiceNow investment.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of organizations, a lot of average, users see ServiceNow as just an IT ticketing tool, but it's obviously so much more than that, right? It's an enterprise platform. It's extremely powerful and it stretches across the business. And so, if you're someone who's in the IT department, you're on the ServiceNow platform team, like the stakeholders that I'm talking about are people in your business, the ones who are running the day-to-day, whether it be HR or facilities or procurement or, there's all of those different operations, those different departments that are running the business. Those are the stakeholders that have a lot to gain from ServiceNow, but they may not even be aware of the solutions and the capabilities that are available to them.
Do you feel like sometimes, let's just say from the partner perspective, do you feel like a lot of focus is put on seeing maybe the C-suite as the stakeholders, but really it sounds like you're saying it's the boots on the ground. It's the people that are more in the day-to-day that are the ones that you want to, when we talk about moving those hearts and minds?
Right. Yeah, I think it's both, right? I think when you're talking about, when you're doing planning And that's when a lot of the ROI conversations come up, right? You're doing some budgeting planning. You're looking at the roadmap of the organization. You're crafting strategic goals.
Yep.
That's when you really want to reach that C-suite or that VP or director level stakeholder, because they have the decision-making power. They're more strategic. They usually own the budget. They're really looking at that big picture impact and what the ROI is going to be. But then, when you get into the details of like, what does it mean to implement? What does this mean in terms of change for the organization? Getting that buy-in from the end users and the boots on the ground, like you said, is just as important.
And those are the people that they're the ones that are hungry for that ROI, right? They're saying, hey, equip me so I can actually champion this, right?
Oh yeah, because they're the ones that are suffering.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to be so bleak about it, right? But
no, that's great. Yeah.
It's true. Like, those are the people that are doing the work. They're the ones that are like working late hours. They're fumbling through manual processes. Like, that's where you really need the buy-in. That's where you want to empower them.
That's a word I feel like, come on, like, business, enterprise businesses suffering. Nobody suffers, but really, enterprise sized businesses, a lot of times that's an actual thing that these people they're actually suffering, and
for sure,
they're tasked with all these things. And so, man, that's a great way to put it. It's almost like, if I could summarize, people aren't sure who to look for. Maybe start by finding the people that are suffering.
Yeah. And that goes to, I think, one of the key areas of like, how do you prove ROI? Well, you have to investigate. You have to like be curious and find those people that are doing those jobs and ask those questions. Like, you can't make assumptions, when you're getting into something like that. Yeah.
Here's a question. I think this will be helpful for everybody that's listening. First of all, thank you everybody that's tuned in, that's listening. Natalie's crushing it. Here's my question. What advice do you have for a ServiceNow platform owner, one of those champions who they want to get stakeholders on board, or is even struggling to get buy-in from the business to expand their use of ServiceNow? How would you coach them? Let's say I'm that person. How would you coach me in that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, it starts with really doing your research. You got to kind of put your investigator hat on. I don't know if you prefer CSI or Inspector Gadget. Either one's good, but like, you really got to put that mindset on of, I need to be curious. I want to seek to understand. You got to shed those assumptions. You're not here to bring solutions yet. At this stage in the game, it's about relating, right? It's about having empathy. So I always recommend that platform owners are going out to the business. They're meeting with the leaders to see what they care about, like what motivates them, what their goals are, but then also meeting with boots on the ground to understand, what their pain points are and what areas are going to add the most value.
I love hearing that it's not time for that yet. It's we've got to start with just empathizing, which is something that we realize in this space sometimes, with IT specifically, or, even workflows in general, it can be very left brain. It's hard to think that way, especially when a lot of the enterprises and the partners that are selling, they're very sales heavy organizations. It's almost like there's no time for empathy, but you're saying you can't afford to not take time to listen and be empathetic.
100%, because you don't want to go down that path and then realize when you get to the end of it that you weren't solving for the right problem. Like, that would be the worst situation, right? And I've been in this game for a while. I do a lot of, pre-sales conversations, discovery conversations. Yeah. And it's funny because I'll talk with IT folks who are like, well, we want to implement this and this and this for the business. And it's like, well, that's great. I agree. Those are great solutions. But what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Like, let's really define that really clearly and understand like what business outcome that your business is looking to achieve. And then we can talk about solutions after we're clear on what that is.
So I'm pulling out a nugget here. If you want to equip users of the platform with ROI, you've got to stop and listen, and you've got to be really good at listening, because unless you can get them to identify those problems, you can't really guide them along into the next step.
Yep. Absolutely. Awesome. And you want to build trust. if you're going to be on the journey with your business, you want to build that trust. You want to, get in the trenches a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got my little notes here. Investigate. That was the thing that you said. That was the first thing that you said you would do. What else?
So the next thing that I would do, once you feel like you have a good understanding of what your stakeholders' needs are and what success feels like for them, it's really about captivating the stakeholders. So what does that mean? Well, that means take all the data that you have and getting data. That's another thing I didn't mention before, but that's a really important part of this captivate process. It's great to talk about theoretically what a solution can do and what impact it can make. But to actually put numbers to that and to tell a story around that is very relatable to your customer and to your users, that's where you're really going to get people to listen. So that has to do with getting into the weeds, really understanding how long does it take to fulfill these requests? How much downtime is happening within your systems and what impact is that causing? Asking all those questions, getting the data, getting stories from people. Stories are everywhere. You just got to ask, everyone's got them. But putting all that together in a really compelling narrative to tell that bigger picture story, that's what's going to start to win the hearts and minds, like I said before, because people can relate and they can see how they're going to be impacted by that.
Wow. Do you feel like this is a good time when you talk about the story part, right? Do you feel like this is a good place when maybe case studies or success stories from other projects come in handy? So even if you're a partner, whether you're a partner or you're a platform owner, let's just say inside of a massive enterprise, you come alongside, you've investigated, right? You've empathized, you know there are 3 problems that they're facing. You're saying, hey, this company we did this for over here, take this success story and go share this with the CFO, or go share this with. So you're equipping them with other stories, even of how you guys have helped maybe another enterprise overcome the same problem.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're a user on the ServiceNow platform, you're most likely either talking with ServiceNow directly, or you have a partner, or you're looking for a partner to support your journey. And, there's a ton of stories out there. I mean, I was just talking with a colleague the other day about a really compelling story within their former healthcare organization, where I'll just do a quick example, Brandon. The use case was nurses. They were onboarding nurses. And after they started on day 1, it was taking up to 14 days to get their IT equipment set up, their laptop, their tablets,
which they need right away.
They needed to treat patients. Like it was costing $1.2 million a year just for nurses. Imagine what that's like for physicians and like other administrative professionals and clinical professionals. I mean, the business case was there. And so, that's an example. There's a lot of studies out there. There's case studies. There's, and then you have the data within your own organization that I'm sure is going to obviously connect with your own stakeholders.
That's amazing. Even in our world, right? We're more in like the creative strategy world, growth strategy. We talk a lot about a key element in storytelling is showing people what's on the line if they don't make this change. So you have to show them, you can't just show them this is the positive state that is possible, right? The art of the possible, which it sounds like that's exactly what you're saying. You also have to show them, here's what's going to cost you to not change. And when you can quantify and say, would you like to keep throwing $2.1 million away a year to not change? Or would you like to have us guide you along? Right? Like I'm going, where do I sign?
No, I mean, it's like, and just to take that a little bit further, I was reading a study the other day that the cost of physician turnover, and again, I'm using healthcare examples because that's my jam, but
yes,
the cost of physician, the cost of physician turnover, it's like between $500,000 to $1 million per physician. Like that's revenue that you can tap into. That's cost savings that an organization can tap into. We have to include that picture. But then you also have the human element, which is another point that, you make really well. And, how does that impact patient care? like everyone listening to this call has either been a patient or had a loved one that's been a patient, and probably a rather serious, you know, diagnosis or something. Like you care about that impact, and everything that we do in the healthcare IT side actually impacts the patient, you know, more or less. And people need to understand, you know, that it's not that many degrees of separation between you and the patient. So
you talk about, you know, just hitting. I always say, hit them right in the emotions. People are emotional. We're humans. We're empathetic, right?
Yeah.
When you can help, not just provide that left brain metrical ROI, but also that more internal, hey, like life, speaking of healthcare, life is on the line here for the businesses that don't make these changes, that don't transform. That's powerful. So you're saying, this is awesome, by the way. I love this because I'm a huge storytelling nerd. I believe that storytelling is the lifeblood for communicating complex ideas in a way that sell, whether you're selling, you know, whether you're selling a car or you're selling digital transformation. So let me sum up what you're saying here. Partners, if you're on here listening, you need to equip the users that you are working with the stories, the data, the metrics, all of that stuff to continue to sell. And then if you're a user on here and you're listening, you're a ServiceNow platform user, and you work, you know, whoever you're working with, maybe it's a rep, maybe it's partners, you need to ask for those things to continue to sell up and to sell, you know, side to side. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll even add one more thing, Brandon. Like, you know, we talk about in this example of patient care and how that impact is there. But the other way to really, you know, influence your stakeholders from a selling position is by talking about burnout, by talking about the real issues that people are experiencing, even within the administrative side of organization.
Yeah.
I mean, I've burned out of a job before because it was just, you know, it wasn't optimized, or, you know, it wasn't as efficient, spending, you know, way too many hours. And I think a lot of folks that are listening are seeing that within their peers. And if you can use technology, if you can use automation to make people's day-to-day better, why wouldn't you? Like, that's a huge selling point.
That's awesome. So you're coaching me, right? You're giving me a couple things. I've got to investigate. I'm going to seek to understand. I'm going to try to identify those problems and the strategic goals. I'm going to show empathy, right? That's the first thing, investigate. And you've got captivate. This one's my favorite one so far, just because I just resonate with it. You got the storytelling, you've got quantifying ROI, demonstrating the potential improvements, the art of the possible we talked about. Are there any other? We've got investigate, captivate. Is there anything else you would coach me to do?
Yeah, there's one more that I think is really important. I think a lot of people forget to do this sometimes when they're on this journey, and that's to empower. So, you know, you might be a platform owner, you might be a user, and you're trying to sell the value of ServiceNow to the business. Well, this is just the beginning. Once the business starts to listen, once they start to really understand the impact that this can have, you got to empower them to own that story. You know, to really be the hero of that story to the rest of their organization, because they got skin in the game.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones who are going to either win or lose based on the direction of how this goes. And so really coming alongside them in a service-oriented manner, really helping support their journey on continuing to sell within their organization and getting that buy-in, you know, getting adoption, getting people to participate and engage in the implementation process, which is a big undertaking. You got to empower those stakeholders to really own and lead.
And that's, you know, I think that's awesome, because this is what we heard in the report. People they want guided through this. The platform owners need someone to empower them. They're actually asking for it. They're saying, hey, you can't just implement this thing for me and then be gone and be done. Like, we need guidance here. And I think that's awesome that you've seen this for years now, you know, as long as you've worked in this space. I just think that's awesome. All right. I mean, my mind is blown. I'm sure everybody listening, I've got this little book of notes. Obviously, you guys can see that I love the color orange here, but I'm taking notes over here. Let me see here. Let's do a little recap. So we got investigate, captivate, and empower. Those three things. So if you're taking notes, I asked Natalie, what advice do you have for platform owners or a champion who wants to get stakeholders on board or is struggling to get buy-in? You got to investigate, you got to captivate, you got to empower. I love to repeat things because that's how you memorize things. That's how you make them memorable. Investigate, captivate, empower. I would love it now if you could, we've got a couple minutes left here. If you could help us maybe avoid some pitfalls around executing this process, what would you say is typically the most challenging part of this for people, right? Where are those pitfalls or landmines?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when I think about pitfalls, I've seen these things happen so many times, quite honestly. And, there's a couple that come to mind. One is making sure that you have a strategy in place. Like once you get the ROI and you got that commitment from the stakeholders, again, like I said, that's just the beginning. But then you got to implement those changes and having a strategy. I mean, Brandon, that, and everyone on here knows, the ServiceNow platform is super powerful. There is so much there. It is not the kind of thing that you want to try to implement the entire thing in one go. You got to find an implementation partner who can really help you break down the major goals and objectives into achievable, realistic phases and chunks, because they're going to help you sequence that. They're going to help you identify those dependencies, how much time is needed from your organization to get that done. So having that strategy in place can take some time, but it's really important to have a successful outcome.
I wish
so that's one thing I would say. Yeah.
That's yeah. Anything else? And then we'll wrap it up here because my mind is.
So there's one more thing, Brandon, I think is important, which is adoption. The last thing you want to do is go through all of this effort and time. And, you could craft the perfect solution and go live with it.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't get adopted, then what's the point? That would be terrible. So,
and it happens probably a lot, right?
Oh my gosh, it totally does. And I know this for a fact because the organizational change management services that are needed or that capability that is needed within any organization to do a digital transformation initiative, those are the most often the last thing to come to mind. It's very overlooked and undervalued, yet it is so important to have that in place and to be very thoughtful and strategic throughout your entire journey, not just once you're implementing, but even before in the ROI process.
I'll give a quick parallel because I'm always trying to find ways for where the creative world merges with this world of digital transformation. We are more alike than people think. It's the same. A lot of times large companies come to us to execute a rebrand. They find a leak in the business and they realize we need to rethink our brand, our positioning strategy. And that trickles all the way down into messaging, logo. You can imagine all the things. And at the end of the day, you can do all of that and rework all of it and it'd be really good and thoughtful and strategic. But if you don't have the change management piece of it and the team in place that can implement it, you just wasted a lot of money for something that you're not going to make the most out of.
Sure.
I hate it. It's the worst. And it sounds like it's the same. So I could keep talking for a couple hours, but we have so many other things to get to. I want you to share two things. I want you to talk about what's happening over at Optimum right now, because I think you guys have some exciting things going on. What's happening over there? What are you guys working on? And tell everybody where they can get to know you or connect with you.
Yeah, awesome. No, Optimum is doing a lot of exciting things. First of all, just in case anyone's not aware, Optimum is a full service, consulting organization, staffing organization. We do advisory services, technology implementations in cloud, ServiceNow, Epic, EHR. But anyways, a couple of the things that our ServiceNow practice is working on specifically, a big one that's come up is clinical device management. I mean, you're probably aware, Brandon, you guys work so closely with ServiceNow that the healthcare life sciences applications that are, have launched last year. I mean, those are making big waves. We had the privilege of doing the first ever clinical device management implementation for a hospital, and we're getting a ton of interest. And so we are just really gearing up to do a lot of assessments in that area, really looking at, customers that are on either new Volo or Connective, which is sunsetting next year. ways that we can help transition them into a fuller leveraging the ServiceNow platform. So that's a big
Wow.
one. Yeah. And then another one that I'm really excited about because it's in my area is this provider onboarding space. I mean, there's so much ROI with that, like I said, and I'm really passionate about digging into that story and painting that picture. And so we're actually just launched a provider onboarding assessment where we'll go out, document your entire business process, current state, craft a design for future state, and then put that business case together for HR and IT leaders within healthcare so that they can go tell the story, just like what we're talking about, and really, get that buy-in to transform provider onboarding. There's so much value there.
That's amazing. I love how excited you are. I'm a very enthusiastic person, as I'm sure everybody can gather. And when you see someone excited about this kind of stuff, first of all, there's a lot in ServiceNow to be excited about right now, which I think is great.
Yeah.
So I think that's so cool. Where can the people that are here on this call, or maybe watching this later on, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, you guys. So reach out to me, Natalie Tollefson. I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a direct message. But otherwise, go to OptimumHealthcareIT.com. That's our organization's website. If you are a healthcare provider organization or you work with healthcare provider organizations, we would love to talk to you. We've got a ton of experts in-house who have a lot of great value to share. So I hope that I get to meet a lot of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, those of you from the ecosystem that have just sat through and took copious amounts of notes. Wow. We'll give a round of applause for Natalie. Natalie, thanks for being here. Guys, this concludes our session with Natalie. We're going to take a quick break. We've got some fun stuff coming up. Natalie, thanks again for being on. And everybody, make sure you connect with her on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
See you, everybody.